Hey guys, it's Marina with Artworthy Life, where I teach Christ-centered art journaling that gets you into God's Word every day. And I just want to say hello to everybody across all platforms. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to get started with today, day 7 of the October Doodle a Day Challenge. If you are excited about it, put a flower in the comments so I can hear you're excited. Hi, Pam on Instagram. Thanks for being on. Say hello. Tell me where you're watching from, everybody. And we're going to jump right into it because today's doodle is actually not super complicated, but it was highly requested. Hey, Anita, looking at us on Facebook, and hi, Bonnie on Instagram. So you guys have talked about fall leaves and how they're actually more challenging than you thought they would be. And so I really wanted to get started with these early because I want you to be able to be painting fall leaves throughout this season. So I wanted to make sure this was early on. And so welcome to day 7 of the Get Started. Can you tell I just did a Get Started art journaling workshop? That is in my brain. I had so much fun with that, and I keep wanting to say it. Welcome to day 7 of the October Doodle a Day Challenge. Pam left me a flower. She's excited. It's a sunflower too. How fun. Anita left a flower. She's excited. Alrighty, welcome to day 7. Now, of course, I want to get started with some scripture first, and we are again still in the Sermon on the Mount. And so I'm going to keep reading that passage. Let me make sure I don't lose my place where my bookmark is. And we left off, I believe, in verse 22. No, we left off in verse 20. Okay, I think so. All right, so starting verse 21. We may reread some of it, but I don't think we have. All right, good morning, Leslie Ann. Thanks for watching. I'm so glad you're on today. All right, I'm just going to start in verse 21. Ye have heard that it was said of them of old time, thou shalt not. We did read this. We did read this because the last part of this passage is some of my favorite verses. Anyway, if you didn't hear that, go back and watch the replay or read it yourself. We're in Matthew chapter 5. I'm skipping down to verse 25. Agree with thine adversary quickly, whiles thou art in the way with him, lest at any time the adversary deliver thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and thou be cast into prison. Verily I say unto thee, thou shalt by no means come out thence, till thou hast paid the uttermost farthing. Ye have heard that it was said of them of old time, thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her, hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. And if thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out, and cast it from thee, for it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. And if thy right hand offend thee, cut it off, and cast it from thee. For it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. It hath been said, whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causeth her to commit adultery, and whosoever shall marry her that is divorced committeth adultery. Yet again, ye have heard that it hath been said of them of old time, thou shalt not forswear thyself, but shalt perform unto the Lord thine oaths. But I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Neither shalt thou swear by thy head, because thou cannot make one hair white or black. But let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. For whatsoever is more than these cometh of evil. I think some of those quotes are some of the most quoted quotes, the most quoted quotes that I have heard. If you have not read through the Sermon on the Mount, I hope that you're joining us every day to hear all of it. Jesus was considered wise, like that when they heard him teach. The Bible says he taught as one having authority, and not as the scribes, or and not as the religious teachers and the people who are supposed to have authority. So it's really interesting that that he was already recognized for having that kind of authority, and then later wasn't always obeyed or followed. But it's very interesting. He's got some amazing teachings through there, all in red letters if you have one of those Bibles. So it's really, really nice to read through, and just some great teaching. Alrighty, so I hope that that's a blessing to you guys. Good morning, Terry. Thanks for jumping on. Good morning, Tammy. She says good afternoon. She's on a different time zone. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and flip Instagram around. You guys know I have Instagram going over here. So I'm going to go ahead and flip you guys around. And Facebook and YouTube, hang tight while I get that set up. And we will get started. And if you do not have your tracer, Instagram, if you do not already have your tracer, please go ahead and click the link in the post that I just made. Whoops. And if you're on Instagram, it's in my bio. So you can go ahead and get that link there. And we are doing a fall leaf today. It's a really, really fun one. And what we're doing today is incorporating more of those deeper reds that we had in our other paintings. So let me go ahead and back this up just a little bit. Let me go ahead and show you some of our other paintings since you guys have been following along. And I want to show you the ones that have a little bit more red. I always have to grab them from behind me because they're over here. So here's some of the paintings we've had so far. And I want you guys to take a look at the reddish colors that are in here. Here's the kind of paintings we've had before. And you can see those reds are more like a rusty red color. So what we're going to do is use kind of that color as we paint this little leaf. And this leaf will go kind of quickly, but I want you to get the sense of those fall colors. I'm just pulling up my reference photo real fast, and keep an eye out around you for all the leaves that are falling right now. There's so many gorgeous leaves that you can use. You can set them down next to you, or you can take a picture of them. I often like to take a picture and then I can use it as a tracer. There's nothing better than a real photo as a tracer because it is, it's exactly from nature. It's the exact shape. You can't go wrong. So it works really, really well. All righty. We're going to go ahead and start by tracing. So let me move these out of the way. Again, if you don't have graphite paper, it's at most craft stores in the drawing section usually, like pencils and pencil drawing section area. And then, oh, let me go ahead and cut this to size as well. And then we are cutting our paper to 2.5 by 2.5 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my paper to size. You can have yours pre-cut if you like. I've been cutting mine every day, pretty much. And then, you know, just kind of try to make sure your edges are straight. That's a big deal. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this to 2.5 inches, which I have my cutter upside down, but that's okay. And the tracer that downloads is PDF, but it has little dotted lines. So actually you could, if you have a printer that's good enough, you could actually use it to cut, to print directly onto watercolor paper if you want to, and then cut the watercolor paper, and those little squares are cut to size. I believe they're sized exactly to that 2.5 inches. So you should be able to just cut that to size if you download that tracer. If you don't know what I'm talking about, click the link in the bio if you're on Instagram. Click the link on Facebook if you're there. YouTube, I don't think I got the link in the description today, but you can go to Facebook and download it there as well. Alrighty, it's also in the other descriptions of my previous videos. I just didn't quite get the link in the description today. Okay, here's our little square, and we're going to, we're going to go ahead and trace it onto here. Alrighty, you guys tell me, do you have more leafy trees in your area or more pine trees? Because out here we have a lot of, I guess maybe not just pine, but like evergreen. We have a lot of stuff with needles, fuzzy stuff with needles, that kind of stuff. And I remember always growing up loving the leafy trees because I really like how they look when they're completely bare, you know, like in the wintertime when they lose all their leaves. I mean, of course, you know, they're really pretty when the leaves are on them, but when they're bare, it's almost like it's that picturesque winter scene with all these bare leaves, leafless trees. But then I came out here in Oregon and it's like totally evergreen country out here. I mean, so many trees that are needly or whatever you want to call it, fur. And they have they have green, needles and stuff, and they stay green all year long. And so you don't end up with as many trees that are bare in the wintertime. And I actually really missed that. But it was interesting because everybody here pretty much loved the trees that were evergreen, and they didn't like the trees that lost their leaves. So I found that really interesting. I don't know if it's just what you grow up with or what. Hi, I'm not sure is it Igor? I'm not sure how to say it. Hello, for watching on Instagram. Welcome. This is day 7 of our October Doodle Day challenge. I almost said it wrong. And this is our day 7 painting. I'm so thrilled to do this one. Anita says leafy trees, but she used a super cute leaf emoji to say it. That's adorable. I love it. Yeah, so which one do you guys prefer? Leafy trees or the evergreen trees? You should tell me. Tell me in the comments. I'd love to know. I have always liked leafy trees better, but I have lived here for 8 years now and have come to love the evergreens as well for their own reasons. It really is amazing to look out across a wintry, I think I fell in love with them when I looked out across a wintry hillside covered in snow on the way to go skiing, and just realized you would never have that in a leafy forest. It's just that deep emerald green. Of course, I love painting, and it's just the perfect scene for painting snow. And so, yeah, fell in love with that. Alrighty, we're gonna go ahead and mix up some red kind of rust-colored paint. So if you don't already know, I use the Como Rebbe Mozart watercolor set. I'm going to be using that pretty much the whole time we are doing this doodle a day. And I'm going to start with crimson in my palette. And I know Instagram can't see my palette as well, but we're mixing up crimson, and I'm going to add a little bit of orange to it to keep it from being too red. That's going to warm it up just a little bit. And then I'm also going to add a little bit of brown, and that's number 52 brown and number 10 orange. I'm going to add a little bit of brown. Okay, and then these 3 colors together kind of get me to the red I'm looking for. Now, what I want to do before I ever touch the page is compare to my previous paintings. So you'll notice I don't have anything that's that super, super vibrant deep red. I know some of you guys opted to have that truck be red, so you might be able to just go with the red, but I want my paintings to be consistent across. So although my reference photo is a little bit darker, I think I'm going to keep my red a little lighter. So I'm going to water it down quite a bit. Terry likes both, and she has 3 emojis going on. It looks like an evergreen, a leafy tree, and a palm tree. Very nice, very nice. I could go with the palm tree. You know, I used to not like palm trees. I don't know why. I think it was just, a preference of decor or something. And there were so many palm tree decor trends going on when I was a kid. So I used to just not really like them. I thought they weren't very pretty. But I love them now because I know what they represent. If there's a palm tree, I'm in a super warm area, and I love warm climates and tropical climates. So now I think it's more of what they represent than anything else. All right, so we're coming in with really light rust color here. And I'm using this Liquitex size 3, but I want you to see, compared to my hand, what the size is in case you don't have this brand. You can just grab something that's similar in size. Okay, and then I'm going into all these little edges. And we're just going to outline this. And then I clean my brush off. Remember yesterday, if you were with us, I was talking about this technique. Put the pigment down, then come back with a clean wet brush and just pull that pigment back into the rest of the leaf like that. And I could go darker with this, but I'm going to start light because, like I said, I don't want my painting to be very different in color from the rest of my paintings. So I'm actually going to flip this leaf around, because down here on these little points, I'm not able to get that real fine tip by pushing away from me. I'd rather pull towards me. So I'm just gonna make my hand a little bit more comfortable by doing that. Hi, Bonnie, and she has 3 palm trees, so she must love palm trees. Plus she's in Florida, right? Is that right, Bonnie? What a great place to see lots of palm trees. Okay, again, coming back with a clean brush and sweeping that color through. Now, just based on my reference photo, I don't need white space on this painting, but I'm gonna pretend it needs it because I like the light and airy feel of a painting that has just some areas raw white. So I'm gonna leave some white space intentionally, probably like where some of the veins are on this leaf. So feel free when you are looking at a reference photo, especially if it's something from nature. If you're painting small or if you're painting big, you can just veer from reality a little bit and get the sense that you're going for, but not just be like restricted by only what you see. And just funny because I very often will give you guys the advice of like paint what you see, not what you think you see. And that's very true when you're doing shading and stuff like that. But I just want you to know when you're painting, you can veer a little bit, just like I am with colors here, trying to stay true to the natural looking leaf, but also not bring in some really wild, vibrant colors that are gonna mess up my color scheme that I'm going with. Because I really like the color scheme I've chosen. So I'm gonna stick with it. And as you guys know, I prefer more muted, softer, lovely colors rather than super bright colors. Which is funny because I actually think super bright colors are really happy and fun. I just tend to not choose them when I'm actually in charge or whatever. I tend to choose more muted, soft, soothing colors. So go crazy with your bright colors if you like them. Just go for it. Do whatever is gonna, make a painting that you love. We're doing fun art, right? All right, so I'm using a fat brush for this tip right here, but I really don't need to. In fact, I could use a smaller brush. I'm just being stubborn and I don't want to switch brushes. But this little edge is quite small, especially these little points. Oh, I was right, Bonnie. She is in Florida. Oh, good. Yeah, and you love palm trees, I'm assuming, because you put the palm tree emoji. That's awesome. And then I'm coming back with a clean, dry brush again, and just sweeping that red color back into the rest of the leaf. And I'm doing this progressively because if I waited to the end, that paint would not be still happy to be manipulated like that. So I'm doing this while it's still kind of wet. So you can see I'm leaving a little bit of white space where that vein is. And I'm going to come around with a little bit more red. Look at this already though, you guys. Just that, I love watercolors. I love watercolors, guys. Have you noticed? I like them. I like them a lot. Okay, and I'm just fading this in a little bit more because I want to have some pigment. So now I have a clean, dry brush, and I'm going to sweep that around. Push that color around like this. And then I'm going to push it out to the tips of this little leaf like that. And she says, I do love palm trees. Awesome, Bonnie. That's so fun. They do represent warmth and sunny weather. Love the sunny weather. Terry says, all art is fun. Oh, good point, Terry. It is. And fine art is fun too. It just stresses some people out. I would love to take a class for some really like super fancy art. I've done some art classes before, but it's really nice to take those challenging classes because they are really fun. They are really fun, and they push you to stretch yourself, and you may not know that you're capable of doing some stuff that's more difficult, closer to like really fancy fine art, unless somebody asks you. For years and years and years, I did not paint people or draw them. it's not like I didn't try. It was just like I kind of gave up on it because as a teenager, I couldn't quite get it. I couldn't get the handle of it. And I probably just gave up too soon as a teenager and maybe, found other interests and was doing other things at the time. So wasn't really pursuing it, but kind of had it in my mind that like, well, I can't people. I just can't, You just assume you can't do things when you stop trying, which is, probably mostly because I stopped trying. So anyway, went for years without drawing people. And then I don't remember what made me try again. But I started doing watercolor portraits based on reference photos. And I started off tracing the photos. And I still usually trace the photo. But I started off tracing the photos so that I would have some kind of starting point. And all of a sudden I was like, wait a second, I just painted a person. What? I didn't know I could paint a person. Like, oh, I have to try again things that maybe I wasn't good at before. So guys, like if you think you're not good at it, try it again. That's how disappointing. I didn't know all that time for years that I could actually paint people. How many people could I have painted? It would have been so cool. All right, here's our first layer of color. Excuse me. We're going to come back in with a little bit more color. And I'm going to start adding deeper shades. But at this point, I'm really looking at my reference photo. If you don't have a reference photo, just imagine where shadow is going to fall, where light is going to fall. So there's some different folds in different areas in this leaf. So the first thing I want to do, I think I'm actually going to switch to my smaller brush for this stage. So I have my size 2 liner brush from Master's Touch at Hobby Lobby. And I'm going to start by adding darker red into these areas. Now it's nice to get that first layer down because after you have that first layer down, if you don't paint certain areas, like they're going to have some color, so you're not as like stressed about getting the color down. Now it's more about getting the shading where you want it. And so you don't have to worry about sweeping the whole color everywhere where you want it. Okay, so I'm adding some darker shading here. And what I'm going to do now is add black to another little section on my palette. Whoops, that was way too much water. And we're going to have this red that I've just created mixed with black. And that's going to create my deepest shadows. So basically this, let me show you guys what this color looks like. Here's a scrap paper. The color I'm using is somewhat like that. So pretty dark, deep red. And I just have a good puddle of it over here on my palette. And I'm going to come in with this, with my regular red like that, wet this tip area here where I want to be having a little bit more shading and maybe over here. But the key is what I need to do, so I'm wetting all this area like this, kind of pre-wetting it so that it's ready. And remember yesterday I mentioned if you're worried about watercolors going everywhere, you are in charge of where they go. They are not boss. So what you need to do is create a little place for them to live. And what I've done is I've wet my watercolor paper with that red pigment, and now I'm going to go get my darkest color with my fine tip brush and just touch the tip of this painting with it. Touch the tip of this painting, touch the tip of this one. And that's going to blend in where I've already created a place for it to live, where it's already wet. You see how that's blending in like that? And these top two were not quite wet enough, so I'm just going to touch them with a wet, clean brush and help them fade in like that. They need to be a little darker. Let me get a little bit more black and touch those in. But look, I can just add pigment to the tip of this leaf. And it's pretty straightforward. It's just going to fade out into that red. I'm using my smaller brush now and helping that kind of fade in like that. See how that's blending in? So you basically want to give it a little place to sit before you start adding your darker pigment. Okay, so let's see who else is on. I want to make sure I'm not missing any comments. Okay. Nice art palette emoji, Terry. That's really cute. I'm so glad you're watching today. Terry has some beautiful plants in her garden. I'm sure you're going to have some beautiful leaves to paint as well. This little spot of shading over here needs to be faded out a little bit more. Okay, so now I'm going to add some more pigment, and that's going to be this red again. So just getting that crimson. I'm going to pull quite a bit of this crimson over because I know we're going to be using a lot of it. So crimson and orange, a little bit of orange. And then some of that number 52 brown, just creating that nice rusty leaf color. Okay, and then I'm going to bring that over with some water. So bringing some more of this red down into the rest of this leaf. So we're going to work on just this one side for a minute. Bringing down more of that red and try not to cover up my little highlights I've left behind on purpose. And these layers of color really help to make the leaf look older. It just like automatically makes it look a little bit worn out. And then we're going to put a little bit of this red out here toward the tip of this leaf. And now I'm going to switch to my smaller brush again. So flipping this around again because I like to pull towards me, I'm going to draw the tips of this in like that. Okay, and then I'm going to use a clean wet brush and just fade that out a little bit because I really don't want it to go all the way like that. And then on the tip of this one, again, I want some of that real dark reddish black. I'm going to put it on this tip. If I touch it while it's wet, it's just going to fade in for me. I don't have to do much. It's going to do the work for me. Like that. I can put a little tiny bit here, but that other side doesn't have as much. Okay, so there's some fading happening there. I'm going to add more red coming down again. So going into this next little section, down here toward this vein, there's a little bit more red happening. Up here it's a little lighter, so I'm kind of letting that sit there. Okay, and then we're going to go up into this third little section that has all these little fun points up here. So I'm going to touch that with red there. Let that go all the way that way. A little highlight going on there. And then this little point here. And then I'm going to use a water and a clean wet brush and pull this pigment down here into the rest of this painting here. Like so. And now I'm going to use my tiniest brush with black mixed with red and touch the tips of these, specifically this one, which has the most black going on, the edge of this one, and then the tip of this one here. That's actually like a really pointy tip on the end of this one. And then I can even use a clean wet brush here. Yes, Pam, I'm sorry. I'm using, yes, when I say red, I'm talking about the mixed up red that I mixed in the beginning. So I'm using red, which is crimson, mixed with yellow and brown. And that's yellow number, I'm sorry, not yellow, orange number 10 and brown number 52. So that's that original rust color. I should probably just say rust. That kind of rusty color that we made at the beginning. Thank you for asking. Good question. Yeah, a lot of times when I'm using mixed colors, it's hard to give you guys the exact color I'm using because it's a mixed up color. So good question. All right, coming down to the rest of this leaf. So you see we're kind of working in sections, and this leaf did not need to be this detailed, but you know, we're working on one little leaf, so we can add more detail to it if we want. So I'm just bringing more shading down with some red, adding some red to one side of that little vein there, and then coming around again. So in this leaf, it kind of gets darker as it gets toward the stem. So I'm going to let the red get nice and deep down here at the bottom. And then I'm going to use a clean wet brush again to push that color out like that. You can just kind of let it fade like that. It doesn't even have to be, I can leave little tide lines. Those little tide lines are where the color doesn't fade perfectly out into the rest of the painting, and that's okay. With this kind of painting, you can leave those tide lines. It'll actually make it look more like a crumply little leaf. So that's kind of nice. Leaves are sort of forgiving that way. And I'm going to turn this around once again. So I'm going to work on the tips of these, and there's a really fun curly tip at the end of this one that I want to accentuate. So I'm going to add some red to the end of this, but only really at the end, and it kind of comes up and actually curls even a little bit more. So just kind of to the end of that, I'm adding some red, and I'm going to let that kind of fade down a little bit. I'm going to clean my brush. Now I have a clean, slightly wet brush, and I'm going to fade that in like that. Kind of scrub it a little bit out into the rest of the painting. I cleaned it again, clean wet brush. And the way that I know when to clean my brush is when I can feel that there's too much pigment on it and I'm wanting to actually get lighter, but I can see that I'm dragging pigment across the page. Then I'm like, okay, I need to clean my brush again. I've got too much on my paintbrush and I need to get it off so that I can paint with less color. I hope that makes sense. Does that make sense to you guys? Paint with a little less color. So when you start to see the color kind of dragging across the page, that's when you know, okay, I probably need to clean it so I don't have so much hanging onto my brush. Okay, I added a little bit of black to the tip there with my finest brush. I've got my smallest brush right now. Just adding black to the tip of that one right there. And we're going to do almost the same thing to this little one right there. And I'm just going to add this lighter color of red. I'm sorry, this is the rust color. This rust color right here. Fill that in like so. I'm going to get a clean dry brush and kind of, whoops, and kind of sweep that around. And then again, we're going to go for black. So you can see this process. We're starting with the red, making sure our area is nice and wet, and then grabbing some black and adding that in like that. And the black is the black mixed with red. So there's a deep kind of reddish black color I'm using. And that's what I mean when I say black. Okay, and we're going to touch the tip of this one. Oops, also. Let that kind of fade out into the red that we put there earlier. See how those tips of the leaf kind of look more crisp because we've added black to them? Isn't that interesting? What kind of leaves do you guys have in your area? Do you have like maple leaves, oak leaves? What kind of leaves are in your area? Maybe we could share some pictures of leaves for all of us to use as reference photos. Wouldn't that be nice? Okay, I'm adding just a little bit of black to this area up here that has dried. And now we're going to work on the right side of this leaf. Now this one might go just a little bit faster because it's going to be a lot deeper colors. So coming back with this rust color, We're going to start with actually this section here, which is actually much darker than the other sections we've done. So I'm going to push this red out to the tips of this section, and then mostly put it on the outer edge, kind of like monitoring my reference photo to see how much red do I need to use. Now I'm going to get a clean, dry brush with a little bit of, clean wet brush, and push this red out to the edges where it's nice and thin, like that. And then also just kind of bring that color toward the center. Just kind of like that. So I want this center area to be lighter. So I'm letting that fade out toward the center just like that. All right, you guys able to see that, how I'm using less pigment and kind of bringing, you see that stem in the center? I'm bringing the color down where that stem is using just a clean, wet brush. It's amazing what you can do with no pigment, just a clean brush. Isn't that crazy? All right. I'm going to work on this little end right here using that rust color again. I'm on the end of this. Now this little end curls slightly. I want to see if I can, yeah. So I'm going to bring this red down almost to the stem here. I'm just adding a bunch of red to that. And then I'm going to use a clean wet brush and just sweep it around. At this point, I don't need to be real particular with the shading because this bottom half of the leaf is so dark. And even if it wasn't, frankly, these fall leaves look good even if you put the shading in the wrong area because they just look like, oh, that part got brown faster or whatever. I'm adding a little bit darker red to this edge just to accentuate that edge a little bit more. Just emphasize that red a little bit. This is a little different than the reference photo, but I'm just kind of going with it. And I'm using a clean wet brush to fade in all this red in this area. Now while that's wet, up here, all this area up here is wet, I'm going to work with the very tips of these and darken them up with a lot of black. So this is that black and red mixture. And I'm just going to add quite a bit of it to the tip of this leaf here. And I'm going to come in with some almost straight black, but not quite, because this area needs a lot more darker color here. It comes down quite a bit onto this part of the leaf. Okay, clean wet brush right now. It's going to help me pull that black down like this. And then a clean wet brush again, because I'm feeling that black coming down. Okay, see that? I'm fading that in. I know it's kind of shiny for you people on Instagram. Okay, now we're going to use that same black on the tip of this leaf over here. I'm sorry, the tip of this little section of the same leaf we've been working on. And that's going to be the same mixture of black and red. And I'm just starting with some of the regular rust color first to yet again prep my painting. And then I'm going to flip it this way because I want to be able to direct the ends of this. So I want it nice and fine. See how I can pull that point towards me and it's a lot more pointy. Okay, and now I can get my darkest black and put that into that area where I've already prepped it with the red. And this is basically so you don't end up with just like straight black lines on your painting. You want your paintings to be natural looking, let your colors kind of fade into each other. You don't really want like a super dark, harsh black line. So even though this needs nearly straight black out here, still want to have some red to kind of help it get where it's going. Maybe that end looks kind of creepy almost. I think I want to fix that somehow. Maybe I'll round one of those edges. I think I'm going to make one of these edges round, like maybe this one. Just round it off. I don't like super pointy things, and that one looks way too pointy. Yet again, veering from reality for preference, but that's okay. It's my painting, I can fix it, you know? That's how I feel. You can do it however you want to do it. Okay, now I'm going to use my bigger brush because I've got a lot of black that I want to kind of help calm it down a little, and I'm going to use my rust color again with my bigger brush and just kind of paint into it like this and pull that black down. And now I'm using a clean dry brush and sweeping that color around. I'm going to bring it up even over here. I'm going to kind of brush, I'm kind of smudging out those tide lines there, if you can tell. A little bit of them. They don't all have to go away, but I want to get rid of some of them. I'm going to do the same, add some red down here. And this is why I'm using this bigger brush, because I can do this quicker and kind of get all the red taken care of in one fell swoop. Like that. I'll leave a little bit of lighter areas where the light is kind of hitting the leaf. And now just concentrate on this little curve up here. One more, we have just one more to add some darker color to. And that's going to be also starting with that rust color again. Pushing into the corners of this leaf right here, those little points. And even on this side as well, you can add a little bit of shading. So if you're looking at a reference photo of your leaves, just pay attention to where the darker colors are and the lighter colors are, and just try to follow that. And you know, if you put it in the wrong area, leaves are very forgiving. It's probably going to look great anyway. But if you generally follow them, it'll look more like a real leaf, which, you know, it's not like every leaf has to look perfect or realistic even. It doesn't even have to look realistic. You could have a very abstract looking leaf and still have a beautiful painting. But if you want to learn to draw some things that maybe you haven't drawn before, it's a good idea to look at reality, look at the real object, and give it a shot. You know, you might surprise yourself. You might be able to paint something very realistic. You never know. And maybe it doesn't look exactly like your reference photo even. You know, it could look a little different. Like my leaf does not look exactly like my reference photo, but it still looks like a leaf. So just so you know, you don't have to follow perfectly the reference photo to still have something that looks very realistic. It just won't look perfectly like the one that you were looking at. And that's the great thing about painting flowers and trees and leaves is even if you look at real flowers and real leaves and real trees, they're not perfect, actually. All right, last but not least, we're going to add some of these veins and stems into this leaf. And I'm going to start with the little end of this leaf, which has a cute little branch. And I'm using red mixed with black for this. It has a little knob thing at the end of it first. And I'm using my smallest brush. I'm going to flip this around so I can pull towards me. And using that smallest brush, I'm just going to pull that towards me like that. And then we're going to come up the middle because actually the center of this leaf is quite black. So I'm again using red mixed with black. That's crimson mixed with number 62 deep black in my palette. So basically a true red and a true black mixed together. And coming all the way up the center. Now you notice I left white space, so I'm not covering that white space up. I really don't want to cover that up because that is going to look really bright and keep my painting looking light. But I'm going to paint kind of alongside it. So all these veins that are coming up, I'm just going to follow where those are at. And they don't have to go all the way. You can just kind of fade out into the leaf, sort of like that. And I don't even have to paint all of them, but I'm going to paint a few. And these ones that are further down, I'm going to have those be more closer to black in color. And then the ones that are further up, I'm going to have them be more like a lighter red. See how I'm following that white highlight? My white highlight is going to look way brighter right next to this black detail. Isn't that fun? Look how pretty that looks. I think that looks just like a little fall leaf. Isn't that nice? Okay, this one might have a little too much white going on, which is okay. I can kind of cover up some of it like that. And then I'm going to lighten up this color I'm using. And to do that, I'm just going to use a little bit more red and orange and just, have less black in it. So I'm just making a new little puddle of color. And for these veins that are up further toward the top, that's what I'm going to use, so they're not so harsh. Pam says she thinks it's an oak leaf. You think this is an oak leaf? Yeah, I don't know what kind of leaf this is. I don't know what it is. Did I say what kind it was at the beginning? I don't remember. I just found it online. It could be. Do you have oak leaves in your area? Because are oak leaves rounded on the ends, or is it a type, like a different kind of oak leaf maybe is pointy on the ends like that? Oh, you do? Oh, fun. So, let me see. Let me come down this side. Well, I want another little vein here, but I'm going to use this lighter color so it's not so bright. And then, I can put a few veins coming off of these. Yeah, so Pam says she thinks there's different types of oak leaves, and she does have oak leaves in her area. Wow, how fun. Yeah, so I think, some of them are round and some of them aren't. A friend of mine loves oak leaves, so she always has the really cool green round ones, which is kind of like what we used for some of the other paintings as a reference. But yeah, it's really cool to see the other kinds. All right, I'm just adding a little bit with the lighter shades, but I think that's all I'm going to do. So that wraps up our little leaf. Pam says, lots of oak in my area, never turn bright colors like maple leaves. Wow, that's amazing. Oh, and Jackie says, another beautiful day. We'll be getting the leaf done sometime tomorrow after the others today. Okay, sounds great, Jackie. I can't wait to see it. we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this doodle demo, and I really, really want to see yours. So if you do a little leaf like this, please go ahead and post a picture of it, share it to your page, and tag Artworthy Life. I'd love to see it. And join us for another doodle demo tomorrow. And if you're not already aware that we have free tracers available, make sure you're getting those in the bio on Instagram, in the description on YouTube, and posted on my Facebook page. Alrighty, take care, you guys. God bless you, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care.